How's everyone doing today? Doing well, huh?
I'm good.
No, I just got a rejection this morning, so I'm a little bummed.
Sorry.
No.
So I had an interview yesterday with the general manager, the hiring manager, 4 people from the engineering group.
But what I have found is that I usually wait now till I get about 550 people on it. I mean, I'll log in at the beginning of it, but I'll wait to about, let me just, hold it.
Hey, Neil,
Yes,
this is a good time for you to respond to that rejection by sending a very nice letter thanking them for the interviews. And if there's, et cetera, if there's any further interest, you'd be more than happy to work with them.
right. What I did is I just left the hiring manager a voicemail saying, thank you again for the opportunity. Any feedback you could provide me would be great. I know they probably wouldn't be able to do that, but wishing them the best of luck and continued success.
And
Okay,
also, you may want to, I'm going to say, not now, wait a few weeks, but look up an influence letter and you could send them an influence letter of why you think you should have gotten the job. I did that and I got the job.
Did
So,
you really? Wow.
yes, I
Okay.
did. And if you want to reach out to me, please reach out to me. I have a copy of my letter. I'm happy to share.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, Jack?
Yes.
Yes, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit? I'll give you first background about Jack. Jack and I first met at a networking event called the Breakfast Club, which used to meet in person second Saturday of the month. And
It sounds crazy now that we actually met in person in real life.
I know. And we've had over time, we've developed, we've stayed in touch, we've networked, and I've been very impressed with a lot of what Jack's been doing with his Recruiter. And Jack is a recruiter by background. So what we wanted to do today was talk a little bit about, from a Q&A perspective, ask questions of Jack as a recruiter, and we'll post them in the chat. But Jack, why don't you talk a little bit about what you're finding out and a little bit of the background and why, a little bit about your company and your business.
Of course. So thank you. I really appreciate you inviting me here, Ken. And I've been on your show or your meetup several times. A lot of times I'm incognito, kind of listening, absorbing, like to hear and understand. So for the last, and I'm really excited to be here and help any way I can. So I've been an executive recruiter coming on about 25 years. So an actual hands-on recruiter and also the CEO of my company. And we place thousands of people. Our niche is Wall Street. And in particular, Wall Street is compliance, legal, risk, audit, those kind of folks. The people who are trying to make it safe for investors. And I thought for today, when I was speaking to Ken, what I could help is maybe clarify and give some color on what it's like to deal with recruiters. Because as they're an integral part of the whole job search, there's still a lot not known about it. And there's a lot of ill will at times because people are not sure, like, are they on my side, not my side? Are they on the side of the companies? Why am I getting blown off by them? Why am I getting ghosted? How come they're not getting in touch with me? And I know a lot of people sometimes have bad experiences, not sure what to do or how to deal with them. So I thought what I could do is really shed some light on it. And to further what Ken mentioned, for the last like 9 months, I'm losing track of time. During the pandemic, I started Recruiter, which is basically a platform just to help people during this tough time. So it's, what we've been doing is trying to do kind of what Ken is, people hold hands, commiserate, offer, all sorts of suggestions and job tips. I'm a senior contributor for Forbes, and I write a lot about career-related matters, what's going on in the corporate world, and is it good for your job? Is it not good for your job? Where the jobs are going? So it really afforded me the chance to use a lot of my different skills and background experience to help people. And I don't have to tell you guys, it's been rough. I mean, it's definitely been a really challenging time for a lot of folks. So I figure any way, you know, I could help, people like Ken could help. I think it's it's the right thing to do during this time where so many people are hurting and so many people are challenged and so many people have so many roadblocks ahead of them.
Appreciate that very much, Jack. We have a lot of people on the call from all different backgrounds. And I think one of the things that makes this event so great is that we all come from different places. So if anyone wants to start with a general question, I'm monitoring the chat. I know we're kind of a chatty group at times to time. We have a lot of things we want to talk about. Just put something in the chat for now. And if we can eventually work it out that we can leave people, we can unmute people, fine. But for now, I'm just going to see if anyone has any questions in the chat, but I'm going to just start with one thing. What is the biggest challenge you have as a recruiter in terms of trying to work between companies with job specs and with people that are looking for jobs?
That's a great question. And I think that the answer really would help people understand how it works. When you get a job order, you're getting it from the company itself. And in times like this, the belts are tightened, there's not big budgets. So if they're going out to a recruiter, what they're really saying is, hey, Jack, we want to find that perfect, amazing candidate, that purple squirrel, that unicorn, that somebody who has everything and more than the job requires. Plus, they're going to come in a little under what we want to pay them. And it's a challenge. So what happens is they come in with this. And then when you deal with people who are looking for a job, it gets very frustrating because what often happens, a lot of these jobs, and I hope it's okay if I just talk really plainly, honestly, and be very transparent. If it's okay with you, Kevin. No punches pulled, just be really straight up. So that what happens is this, there's so many people who I talk to and I speak with and I hear about that are really brilliant. They're smart, they're motivated, they have great experience. But if it doesn't align exactly what these companies are looking for, the company's like, no, thank you. We don't want to take you. And they'll go to a recruiter like myself. This is what we're paying you for. We want to find somebody. We have a list of 20 ingredients. We want you to have 21 of those ingredients or 22 of those ingredients. It gets so frustrating for job seekers because they're like, hey, Jack, look at my background. Look at my experience. I could do it. I might not have 20 of those, ingredients. I have maybe 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, but I can learn the rest. And I know I can do it if given the shot. So to answer your question, Ken, the frustration is where I know when I speak to a lot of people, they can do it and they have the background, but the companies seem to really dig in. They've done this pre-COVID, but it's even worse now where they're feeling, hey, we want to have exactly what we want. And if it doesn't match, we're going to keep looking. And it's really rough because if I don't know if anybody here has gone through this where you feel like, hey, there's a job that you applied to, that you interviewed for, and you got passed up and it's driving you crazy why that happened. I don't know if this helps by giving you that kind of, here's what goes on behind the scenes, that even if you have a great amount of experience hitting dead on, that they're really looking to see, can you check off the box for everything? I mean, has that happened to people? Have you been?
Raise your hand or just, put the, use the icon there.
If you don't mind, because so Rob and Roxanne, I saw what happened? Like what kind of situation?
If you want to unmute yourself to answer, go ahead.
Sure. I'm in corporate relocation, so global mobility, financial services, and I've been contacted by numerous recruiters because I have public accounting experience and I have financial experience. And so next thing you know, I interview with the recruiter and then I hear nothing.
Right? It's totally. All right. Can I give you some inside scoop about why this happens?
Sure.
I'm going to get kicked out of the recruiter club. They're going to hate me because I'm going to, as my Gen Z daughter would say, I'm going to spill the tea here. and I'm going to give the real deal. So what happens is this: recruiters are paid by the company, right? And they're paid pretty handsomely. It's kind of a 20-25% of a base annual salary, sometimes more if it's like a senior C-suite one. So they get paid pretty well. But the catch is they have to find the right kind of person, the exact kind of fit. Plus, most recruiters work on contingency. What that means is that if you don't place the winning candidate, you could spend hours, weeks, days, months searching, and you get nothing for it. So what ends up happening, if let's say a recruiter is dealing with you, Roxanne, and it first seems like, okay, maybe there's a fit, but then they realize not so much, they're thinking, more time with Roxanne. My competitors, because what happens, these companies don't give it usually out to just one recruiting firm. They'll give it out to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 recruiting firms. Plus, at those recruiting firms, you might have 5, 6 people recruiting there, as well as the company posting it themselves, putting it on LinkedIn and so on. So the competition is so fierce that they're saying, and I'm not making excuses for them. I'm just giving, what I mentioned to Ken, I'll just give the real truth. Here's what's going on so it can help you understand. So what ends up happening, they're going to think, hey, Roxanne seemed pretty cool, pretty nice, pretty smart, but I don't know. I don't know if she's going to make the cut. And I got to keep looking and find somebody else, because if I don't find someone else, my competitor will, and I'm not going to get paid. So I want to make a placement fee, so I'm going to keep moving. And what drives me crazy, you can probably hear my voice, is that it's so easy for someone to just say what I just said, like, hey, this is how it works. So I'm not blowing you off. I just really, you may not have the exact background, and I got to keep looking for other people who do it. So at least it still stinks. But at least you'll know, oh, okay, that's why they bounced off. That's why they moved on, because they feel, all right, I'm probably not going to have success placing you. I got to find someone who I could place. And as a businesswoman, you're like, all right, I'm not happy about it, but I understand. Do that for some reason, which to me is nuts. You're better off just telling it so you don't pick it up, because 6 months later, they may have a job that you're perfect for, and then you're not going to want to give them the time of day. So sometimes it's just really bad business, in the way they run things.
So what's the difference between the different recruiters? There's third-party recruiters. There's recruiters that are pretty much per diem or they work on the side, and there's corporate recruiters.
Yeah, so I would say the vast majority, and I would imagine the vast majority of recruiters that the folks here would interact with are what you call contingency recruiters, which is basically, hey, a company, ABC widget company, Morgan Stanley, Citigroup, Instagram, Facebook will say, hey, we have this job, we want to help you recruit for it. But then they're going to also bring in 4, 5, 6 other different recruiting firms. And whoever gets that winning candidate first and successfully places gets the fee for it. The rest don't. You also have what they call retained search. And that's really more on the C-suite for like CFOs, those kind of folks. And when it's retained, that means they'll just engage one firm, and that one firm knows they're the only ones working on it, and they're going to get compensated for it. So that's at a kind of a higher level, and it's a little bit more tasteful, if you will, because then they could really work with the job seeker. They don't have to worry about someone breathing down their neck to get, a competitive person, because they have control over it. Then you have the in-house, and a lot of them now call themselves talent acquisition. When I started recruiting, it really wasn't that much. It wasn't called that. So you have the internal ones, and mixed bag. Some are awesome and amazing, just like any profession, and then some not so much. Some are very aggressive in reaching out, some very passive. Some really know their stuff, a lot don't. So that when you interact with the internal talent acquisition or internal recruiters, you're going to get a mixed bag. And also, they have a regular. Sometimes you'll see recruiters are much more aggressive, external recruiters, contingency recruiters, because it's a business for them. Internal recruiters, it's more the difference between hunters and gatherers. They're collecting resumes. They're going to get paid no matter what. So it's a kind of a different feel. And then you have these more staffing agencies, and that's where you'll see contract positions, long-term, short-term kind of gigs. And they're they'll do that. So that's kind of a whole other world.
Do you like people following up with you after an interview or not? And how, if you do?
For me, it's so important because that's how you know, that's how you can kind of make it work, because you want to get, as a recruiter, the feedback from the job seeker, how they thought of it, how it went, what did they think. You want to get the feedback from the hiring manager for the interviews, because then you're kind of the middle person and you could kind of keep both sides abreast of what's happening. You know, like, hey, Ken, you really, they said you're really good at this part, but they said you need to work a little bit on such and such. So next interview, Ken, I really need you to brush up on blah, 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 blah. So then you can really rock that next interview. Or they'll say, hey, you know what? You're going to meet with Alex Freund with the next interview. Here's what he looks for in a candidate. And here's what you got to do when you meet with Alex to really shine.
How do you feel about people reaching out to you with a LinkedIn connection request either before and after? Is that good, bad?
Wait, I'm sorry,
not?
LinkedIn request for?
Before or after? Let's say, you're going to have an interview, you want to reach out to the recruiter first, or even as a follow-up. Is there a best practice?
See, I'm a big believer, there's never really too much communication, because the more communication you have, the more you build a relationship with somebody, whether that's a recruiter, whether it's just someone in your network, whether it's an in-house HR person. I think the more you get back and forth, the better you get to know the other person. So I definitely like when people get in touch, they send LinkedIn requests, they comment, they send things back, because I get to know the person better, they get to know me better. And by doing that, then you kind of forge a really good relationship.
So how can a recruiter help a job seeker, assuming the job seeker has the ability to perform a good job search? I'm not exact. Mike, if you want to unmute yourself, kind of explain what you're looking for with that answer, with that question.
Just remind me what the question is, Ken.
How can you wrote down, how can a recruiter help a job seeker, assuming a job seeker has the ability
Yes,
to,
yes.
so if you could just ask Jack, be better that way.
Jack, what is the importance of a recruiter? As an example, I could look for a job myself and do everything. Where does the recruiter add value to me as a job seeker?
That's a good question. I would say a recruiter would be part of the overall strategy. I'm not going to say that, oh my God, you absolutely have to have a recruiter or two, and it doesn't have to be one, you can have a few of them helping you out. So it's not as if I'm going to say, hey, you got to do this. It's part the same way I would suggest that you market yourself and brand yourself on LinkedIn, that, tap into your network, that you try to find people at your target companies. So you want to have as much in your arsenal as possible. And I think that's a big part of it. Now, I'll say this: a recruiter is, what I would strongly suggest is, and this is, I think, another bone of contention for people, because I believe, in my own personal opinion, the best recruiters are the ones who specialize in a certain industry. Because to answer your question, Mike, if you specialize in a certain industry as a recruiter, you're going to know the companies. You're going to know the people who work there. You're going to know their culture. You're going to know the type of people they tend to hire. You're going to know what kind of salaries they make, what kind of raises and bonuses they make, what chances people have for advancing. So it's not only a recruiter acting in a passive recruiter. You're really getting somebody who has that knowledge to share. It's like having a really good accountant or a really good lawyer, who could just give you so much information that you feel like, all right, I'm super prepared. I understand this so much better now. So I think the key is, and I think this leads to a lot of frustration for people, is if you just use a recruiter because, Amy mentioned this person's really good, and suggested to speak to Carol, but she doesn't really specialize in my area, it's probably not going to go anywhere and just lead to disappointment. But if you find somebody, like, for instance, Mike, what do you specialize? Like, what's your, what career are you in?
Information technology.
So exactly. So you would want to find somebody who really understands information technology, knows, the companies that you're interested in, the geography you're interested in, knows the players there, because then that's value added. Then that person brings a lot to the table and it's worthwhile. If it's just any old recruiter, probably not so much. Maybe could they help? Maybe, but I think your chances of success are exponentially higher when you get a person who really knows their field, just like any profession. They really know what's going on because then they can really help you achieve your goals.
So what you're really saying, Jack, then just to summarize is you're reducing the research effort by the job seeker. You're also providing a third party, how can I put it? A third party being in a negotiation process, you can add value to the job seeker as well as to the client and guide them both in order to have that meeting of the minds.
Precisely. It really is kind of being a matchmaker. It sounds kind of corny, but it really is, because you have two sides to the equation. You have the person who's looking for a job and you have the company that wants to hire, and both of them want it to work. So I view myself oftentimes as a matchmaker. So I got to put them together, because if you just have one that's not interested, it's just not going to work. You need both parties to feel that, all right, we can make this happen. So yeah, and then I really like your point about the salary negotiations, because one of the hardest things to do is when you're looking for a job and it comes time to go over salary, it's so uncomfortable. It's so awkward, because now I gotta go to Lori and say, hey, Lori, you're my boss, and you gave me an offer for this, but I think I should make much more, twice as much. And it's uncomfortable to do, because this is the person I'm going to be working for, and I'm going to come across being pushy and arrogant and obnoxious. So if you have a recruiter who inserts him or herself in the negotiating phase, it smooths it out.
But
You know what I
Jack,
mean?
So the
That
question,
weird-
if, and this comes up a lot with me, if you hear from a recruiter and they don't get back to you, what should you do? Can you apply directly on the website? Would you reach out to someone at the company, or is it just assumed that there's only one way to get in?
See, that's a really interesting question that has a couple levels on it. Number one, I would, not be shy and definitely nudge that recruiter, because I'm a big believer of this. You know what? You got to take control of your career. You have to have active control, because very few people who are going to care. So you got to really say, hey, you know what? I got to make this happen. I'm going to make this happen on my own. If I could get help from recruiters, great. From network, great. But I got to control my own destiny. So if a recruiter is not getting back, you're well within your rights to say, hey, what the hell? What's going on? Get back to me. Let me know, why did I not get selected for the second round of interviews? Why wasn't I given the offer? And to me, it's worth kind of going back and really trying to get the answers, because you have nothing to lose at this point. And it makes sense to do that.
So Jack, it sounds like the crux of the whole process between the job seeker and your client is having a good relationship.
If you can have a good relationship, open dialogue, that's just the best. When I first started recruiting, 20 plus years ago, that's exactly how it was. So let's say, I'd get a job order and they'd go through all the details. They go into excruciating details about everything. They talk about who the hiring manager is, what the person's background, how the process, how long it'll take, who you meet, and so on. And then every step of the way, you get feedback. You get feedback from the interviewer, the candidate will get feedback, you brainstorm, and it just keep moving. And then it makes it so much easier, because, everybody's keeping each other informed. Everyone's on top, knows what's happening. It cuts down on the miscommunication. Fast forward to now, I've seen such a huge change. And I started seeing it way before COVID, in which, to me, my own personal observation is that there's definitely a combination of the more technology that's been deployed at these companies with the less humanity involved with the whole hiring process. the more, the more you have ATS systems and the more you have technology inserting itself between the job seeker and the hiring manager, the harder it gets, the more uncomfortable it gets. And it's hard to succeed that way because you have too much friction and too much barriers between the two parties.
So this one comes up a lot too in the different groups. When you have an interview and they tell you they're going to get back to you by a certain time frame, and that time frame doesn't happen, and wait and wait and wait. Is there a time frame follow up? Like if they say I'm going to get back to you by the end of the week and it's today, what do you? Go ahead.
First of all, whenever they say they'll get back to me by whatever date, I tag on at least another week. So whenever someone says I'm going to get back to you by Friday, I'm thinking, all right, we're talking about probably next Wednesday to next Friday, maybe perhaps. So to manage expectations, when they say get back nowadays, it's either that's never or that's maybe a week later, 2 weeks later. So you got to kind of mentally prepare yourself for it. And then the same way with recruiters, you owe it to yourself to follow up. And what I would suggest is polite persistence, meaning that no one's going to like if I go to Ken and say, God damn it, Ken, you said you'll get back to me Friday. It's 3 weeks later. What the hell? Even if he wanted to deal with me, he's going to think, hey, Jack's a jerk. I'm not going to even, whatever. But if I'm like politely, hey, Ken, I know you're really busy. I know you're juggling a lot of things. I saw some different developments with your company. I'm sure there's fire drills going on. But if you don't mind, if possible, can you help me out and just find out, am I still in the running? Am I not in the running? And then you can follow up, a couple of days later and so on and so on, but in a way that doesn't irritate. And it's so unfortunate you have to do it this way, that you don't irritate the person, but at least you stay on the radar. And then you want to co-opt that person, that they're on your side so they champion your cause.
I know one of the things that I get frustrated about when I was in job search is when I get the call back and I say, the job's now on hold. The job's now on hold, or something along those lines. And what is that a buzzword for, if anything?
It's on hold. We're changing it. We're going in a different direction. We're rethinking it. Maybe we're going to take someone internally. What I found out over the years is this: if it's a hot job market and companies feel confident in the future, they're much more apt to make decisions and move because they think, hey, everything is going well. Business is looking good. The future is looking good. And if I don't hire someone good now, my competitor is going to hire someone. So we got to act. Conversely, when you have times like this, it's the exact opposite, that companies are scared, but they're not going to admit they're scared. They're afraid. They're nervous. They don't know what to do. But companies aren't going to say, hey, Christina, I don't know what to do. I'm afraid. I'm scared of what's going to happen next. They don't say that. So instead, they come up with these excuses. Hey, we have to rethink it. Hey, we're changing the job description. We're going to go in a different direction. We're going to maybe revisit it after fill in the blank. And I think those are really buzzwords for they don't know what to do. They're stuck in inertia. And instead of just being honest about it, they come up with these, these things that seem to make sense because people are like, oh, okay, I guess, you're going to go in a different direction, or maybe you're rethinking it or what have you. But the reality is more often than not, they just don't know what to do. And they're scared to make a decision. So they just kick the can down the road.
Yeah, that seems to happen a lot. I mean,
all the time.
I think at this point, well, one question before is, how do you know to find specific technical recruiters in specific industries? I mean, searching on LinkedIn, I guess for sure, but is there any other suggestion you can make?
Definitely. So I think one way to do it is, as you mentioned, you go to LinkedIn and see different recruiters who post jobs there who are pretty active. And as I mentioned, I'd make sure that they're experts in your space. I would look at different job boards and see, are there certain recruiters that constantly post jobs within the geography I'm in, the sector I'm in, the level that I'm looking for? So you feel, this person seems to have a handle on, the type of jobs that would be appropriate for me. I would definitely ask your coworkers, former colleagues, people who've landed good jobs, and ask them, hey, who did you use? Because, wow, we were at the same level, at this level, now you're here. Hey, who did you use? How did it happen? What went on? If I could give a shameless plug on Recruiter, we put together a recruiter directory that has, probably going on 8 to 10,000 recruiters on there, all different disciplines, and you can kind of check them out.
Can you put that in the chat? Just put the link to
course.
it in the chat at some point. And I'm
Absolutely.
going to save the chat and send it out because I saw a
Yeah.
couple of questions.
And it's free, by the way, just so you know.
Right.
So the whole site is free. We're doing it to help people. So yeah.
All right, I'm going to ask you a question that
Yeah.
that someone else. How do you feel like when I've told people to do a search like I'm hiring, we're hiring, and try to do things along
Stop.
those lines?
I will
Is
bring
that
it
something
to
that you
you.
recommend?
Good boy. Thank you. Hold on.
When
Are you
say-
meeting Leo at 3?
Whoops. Mute.
When you said hire, you mean the recruiter's hiring the company?
No, when you do a search on LinkedIn and you type in the search, I'm hiring, and that shows up in the title section.
Right.
And the person has put in there that I'm hiring or we're hiring, and they put that as a recruiter or something else. What is that a good idea for someone to network to try to find someone who has that on there in their title?
That's an interesting question. I guess, Ken, it would be if they give more information when they say I'm hiring. So if they say I'm hiring, then they go on to say we're hiring for accountants who work in the music industry and are at the VP level, because then like, oh, okay, I fit that. That's great. If it's a generic I'm hiring, to me, it seems a little come on-ish, like throwing this big wide net, let's see what we can get. And then it can lead to frustration for people because like, wait, you said you're hiring. And you're like, oh, they're just casting a net and putting together resumes for the future. Yeah, I would look more closely the type of roles, are they relevant to your background? And then if they are, then sure. Then it's like, yeah, okay, this is right up my alley. Absolutely.
Alex Freund wanted to make a comment. Alex, what do you think about about the conversation here? Got to unmute yourself, Alex. Can't hear you.
I think Alex is saying I was really saying great stuff.
Oh, okay, good.
He's texting me privately saying, that was brilliant, Jack. That was so awesome.
There you
Yeah,
go.
okay. I needed to learn how to unmute myself.
Okay.
Okay, so first of all, I'm sitting here and I'm listening, and I love, Jack, what you say. I really absorb everything. But here is, I'm a kind of sitting in the middle, I'm neutral, and I view recruiters as real estate agents. What is a real estate agent? A real estate agent is a person you go to when you want to sell a house or when you want to buy a house. People have the tendency to go to recruiters. Why? And now I'm reminded of a Brooklyn boy by the name of Willis Sutton. He lived in the early 1900s, and when he was asked, why do you rob banks? He said, because that's where the money is. So, people go to recruiters because recruiters have access to jobs. But I think that is a kind of wrong approach. Why? Because there is something that I recognize. It's called outbound marketing and inbound marketing. Outbound marketing is when you go out to look for somebody to find your job. But inbound marketing is much more potent when you have enough on your resume and on your LinkedIn profile to be worthy for a recruiter to try to find you and engage you. This is what you want. But you see, this is much more difficult to create that environment. People want to go to a recruiter because they have jobs. So all I'm saying, just think twice. Perhaps you want to do more work on your LinkedIn and on your resume and your networking skills, etc. Let the recruiter come in and find you. It's much better for you.
I think that's a great point, Alex, because recruiters very much are like a real estate agent, sometimes a used car salesman, sometimes, the combination of different things. And like any industry, you can have really good ones, you can have some mediocre ones, some terrible ones. You get the whole gamut. But if you have a strong resume and it's kind of search engine optimized and you have all the right terminology and keywords and everything that just screams out, most recruiters, whether, and as Ken asked before, the different types of recruiters, doesn't matter whether they're contingent, they're staffing, they're executive, they're retained recruiters, they're going to search LinkedIn. That's kind of the go-to thing for all recruiters. And like anybody, they want to save time and find people as quickly as possible. So if you have on your LinkedIn profile everything that recruiter is looking for, yeah, they're going to search you out. So you don't even have to worry about just trying to find them, because they're going to track you down because they have a job to fill, and they're going to look and see, hey, Alex Freund is, a top career coach, and then look at all his things and, hey, that's what we're looking to recruit for. And they're going to see your profile, and they're going to send you a message and contact you and say, hey, we have a great job for you. So I agree that's mission critical. I'm glad you.
Jack, perhaps you can talk a little bit about, assume somebody, a recruiter, finds you and wants to talk with you. I find out from the people I work with that sometimes the interaction between the recruiter and the candidate is not a very good one. So can you address a little bit how to talk to a recruiter? What are the things to say? What are the things not to say?
It's interesting. And when you hear from your clients, when they say it's not a pleasant interaction, do they give you specifics, or they just say it just?
Well, they're very suspicious of them. I have to tell you, regretfully, unjustifiably, I think in many cases, recruiters are not viewed in a very positive light because of their behavior in the past. And on the street, people are not talking very nicely about recruiters. That's a fact. So when a recruiter calls, candidates are very suspicious of them.
I think that's fair. I think, as I mentioned before, in a way, it's not too dissimilar from someone, you see these used car lots in your town, and you're like, they're saying it's good. They're saying there really was no accidents, but I don't know. I'm not sure. So number one, yeah, you have to definitely, I think it's healthy to be skeptical. I think it makes sense to be cautious and curious, and have your eyes open. I've heard a lot. I'd be curious if you guys have heard. I've heard more and more stories about quote unquote recruiters. I'm not even sure if they're really recruiters, who are asking for large sums of money to say, hey, you know what? I'll help you find a job. I'll help you with your resume. I'll help you, I'll help market you. And it sounds kind of questionable. I don't want to cast any aspersions on people, but it brings that kind of folks out in this type of market. But yeah, it does make sense. I would suggest this, when you speak to a recruiter for both sides, Alex, one would be, you want to be able to, and this holds true whether it's a recruiter, someone you're networking with, an HR person, your neighbor who maybe could help you out. You want to have a really crisp, concise pitch about who you are, what you're looking to do next, and your background. So whoever hears it, whether it's a recruiter, whether it's somebody you're hoping to get you in the door somewhere, they get it. They're like, oh, I understand. What Jack is all about, his background, his experience, what he's looking to do next, and I can help. So when you speak to a recruiter, you want to do that. Flip side, when you're speaking to a recruiter, you want to get a sense, you want to interview him or her as well. You want to get a sense of, do they specialize in my area? Have they placed people at my level? What kind of salaries do they usually place people at? What's their track record? What companies do they work with? And so on. So I think it's well within your right to interview the recruiter to get a good sense, hey, is this someone I want to deal with? And if you feel uncomfortable, if you feel that they're full of it, then you might say, hey, thank you, I appreciate it, but I appreciate the call and.
So Jack, let me ask you this. When you see people have the open to work on the LinkedIn profile, they have open to work or something in their title or whatever, is that a red flag, even if they just do it to recruiters only? I mean, what is your take as a recruiter when you see someone that's kind of saying they're available? I mean, well, how would you kind of suggest that someone, do that?
It's interesting. That banner definitely puts people into certain, camps of how they feel about I'm kind of agnostic. I look at it this way. If you have the banner, that's fine. There's a catch. I would just make sure that it's not as if, and please, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. If you have this on your banner, please don't get mad at me. I'm just saying this is very healthy. So if you have it on, but you just say something like, hey, lost my job for COVID, help. It doesn't help recruiters or hiring managers or network people or my cat here. I think what you want to do if you do have that banner is to be able to say, hey, I'm in between roles. Here's what I've done. Here's my accomplishments. Here's my achievements. And here's what I'm looking to do next. And I definitely would like to speak with people who could help me achieve the next step of my career. So that when someone looks at it, whether it's a recruiter, whether it's an in-house HR recruiter, a talent acquisition person, then it goes, oh, okay, I get what Debbie's looking to do next. And I happen to have jobs for her. So I'm going to get in touch with her. If it's just the banner without anything else, it's so hard. It's so hard to kind of figure out how can I help somebody? Even if they want to help somebody, it's hard because you really don't know. What did they do? What are they looking to do? Because it's hard to guess, okay, there's so many people, they may have been in one space, but now they want to pivot to somewhere else. You don't know unless they tell you. So I think the more information you could put out there along with that banner that describes who you are, what you want to do, what the next step is, what you've done, with the idea that if you were looking at it, you go, oh, okay, I know I can help that person, or, I can't. But either way, it makes it easier for both sides.
That's where the about section comes in on the LinkedIn profile. What Jack had mentioned there, you definitely want to use that to portray yourself in the best light. So what is your feeling about the old automatic tracking systems and having to deal with them? I mean, I'm sure you have some thoughts. We all have some thoughts here.
See, maybe this shows my age in that I believe like in recruiting, in the whole job search, in the interview process, it's all about people. And the more technology you put in the way of people, the harder it gets. And it's so frustrating because it's a people thing. You need to have interactions. You need to have conversations. Even if it's over Zoom, all right, I get it. We're in pandemic. We're not going to meet and sit down for a cup of coffee in front of each other. But okay, at least we'll have a phone call. Oh, that'll be fine. Have a Zoom call, do something. And to me, I'm not going to say like they're evil, horrible robots out to destroy us, but I do feel like anything that gets put in the way, it just makes it harder. And I do, in a way, empathize because I've dealt with tons of HR people. And if you're at a company like a Google, an Amazon, a JP Morgan, a Goldman Sachs, they get so many resumes that they have no choice but to kind of deploy technology to do it. So it's, personally, if I had my way, I would say to these guys, hey, listen, Amazon, you got $1 gazillion, just hire more human beings, conversations. In the long run, you'll probably get better candidates, you'll make better hires, your reputation will be better because it's a pleasure, dealing with you in terms of the interview process. So, yeah.
Anyone have any other questions? Go ahead,
Yeah,
Alex.
Jack, I have a list of words that I suggest my people not to use on their LinkedIn profile. I want to quickly run it by you and you tell me, am I right or am I wrong? These are keywords not to use on LinkedIn. Looking for, available, open to, new opportunity or opportunities, seeking, free agent, unemployed, in transition, next adventure, seeker, searching, new job, in search of. Is this a good idea not to use this, or it's a good thing to use those words?
To me, I mean, they sound great, but being the recipient, hearing that, or if I would see that on a profile, I'm left like, all right, what do I do now? I don't know what to do. Even if I want to help you, I don't know. I would find it more helpful if they would say, hey, I'm seeking to do X, Y, and Z, and I've done A, B, and C. That's why I'm looking to do X, Y. If they give more specifics, then I'm like, oh, all right, I could help this person. maybe I don't have the expertise to place that person, but I know others who can, and I can definitely introduce you to those people. But if they just have those very vague-ish words that sound like they're taking action, but in a way not, it's hard. It's really hard. It's like, what do you do? How do you work with that? Okay, they're looking, but now what? So I think it's the same thing with that open to work profile. You really need to show people, you know, here's what I've done, here's what I'm looking to do, and here's how you can help me. Does that make sense, Alex?
These are keywords, and I believe that recruiters are looking for people via keywords. And it's very clear to me that these are keywords that a recruiter will not be looking for. How many recruiters are going to search for looking for, or unemployed, or in transition? So that's the reason you want to avoid.
Yeah, you're going to look for like tax accountant, you know, because I'm recruiting, let's say, for a tax accountant.
Of course.
You know,
Of course.
you know, like the very specific terms. Yeah.
So this is the other thing, Jack, the non-technical aspect. A lot of job seekers, there's a frustration and an emotional aspect to it. How would you suggest that someone kind of unstick themselves if they've done something all the time? I mean, to get out of their comfort zone, because you and I both run these groups in different ways and we see a lot of things. Are there any things you could suggest in a general way?
Yeah, that's probably one of the toughest things. I mean, is it tough that you may not be earning the same amount of money? Absolutely. Is it tough that you're burning through, you know, your emergency funds? Yes. But I think the mindset, the mental health is one of the things that we don't speak enough about in this country at all. And that just levels people. It's brutal because we don't talk about it. Because we don't talk about it, people withdraw. And to me, I think it's putting salt in the wound. And I think one thing, you have to try to feel comfortable to share what you're going through, because it's hard to keep it bottled up, particularly you're bottled up and you're stuck at home. The thing to also realize, this is across the board. It's so often, when I speak to people both personally and professionally, you get it, like, they kind of feel like, hey, it's just me. And when they realize, let's say in a meetup like this, where there's so many great, smart people, it's almost a relief to say, wow, all right, it's not just me. There's so many others who are going through this. So in a bizarre way, I feel a little better, because I thought, maybe, what did I do wrong? Do I have bad luck? Is there a black cloud over my head? But when they realize that there are other people who are going through it, it feels a little better. So I think joining up things like this, participating, talking, sharing it, you know, sharing your feelings with family, friends, even going to a psychologist or what have you, because it is tough. It is mentally, it's brutal and it's draining. Now, I could tell you what I try to do. I have this hack I do for myself, because whether it's recruiting, whether in business or whatever, you know, oftentimes you're just knocking your head against the wall, and you keep knocking your head against the wall and nothing is working and you're just frustrated. So when I find myself going down that path, I try to just take a step back, and don't laugh. I mean, this is weird, but I almost like, I just, in my own mind, I say, you know what, whatever just happened. I'm closing the door on it. You know, whether maybe the last month, the last week, the last 2 months, whatever was miserable, terrible, you know what, it's over. I can't change it. Nothing I could do is going to make it different. But the only thing I could do is just kind of start with a clean slate. And then I say to myself, all right, I'm not going to think about whatever went wrong. I'm not going to dwell on whatever negativity. I'm going to look at it fresh start. And I think that goes with a job search too, where if someone's looking for a week, a month, 2 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year, 2 years, it's so easy to just keep looking back at all the things that didn't work, and it just brings you down. It's normal. It's natural for that to happen. So, and what I'm saying is not easy to do at all. I get it. But I think if you're able to say, hey, that all happened, it's in the past, but I'm going to start looking right here, right now, fresh start. I'm not going to bring up all the things that went wrong. I'm just going to focus on moving forward and just try to shift the way you're thinking of things. And that helps, because I've noticed when people interview and they bring up when I say bring up, I don't mean literally bring up like in the conversation, but you could tell when people interview and they're feeling angry, resentful, bitter. And then the companies kind of like, we'll take a pass because they're thinking, hey, if they feel this way, I don't know if I want to bring that person aboard. And then they don't get selected and then they feel worse. And it's this downward cycle. So having a positive outlook, having motivation, having drive is so mission critical to succeeding in the job search. And the tough part is in this kind of environment, it's hard to do because we've all in one way or another been beaten up senseless for almost a year now. So it's not easy to do, but I think that's one of the key, my own opinion, I think that's one of the key ingredients to succeed in searching, to somehow be able to divorce yourself from all the negativity that's happened and just really focus on the moment of what you're doing and put everything into it. And I'm making it sound like it's easy to do. Trust me, I know it's like the hardest thing to do. But if you're able to do that, your search goes better. You're able to get more interviews. You're able to entice more people to help you in the job search. You're able to get more leads because people always want to help people who feel motivated, you know, who are energized, who are enthusiastic. And so Ken, I think that's like a big thing, that to try to close the door on whatever happened in the past and really just focus on where I am now and how I can move forward and how I can move forward in a positive way. Because it is a new start. It's a new year, a new reboot, even though it started kind of nuts. But it's a brand new chance to just try all over again, reinvent yourself, pivot to something new.
So before the call ends, just a couple of things. I'm going to be looking at the questions here. Can I send you some questions as a follow-up and we can just reply, back and forth? Because if anyone has, the other thing is this, would you be open at some point to come back and speak into the group?
Sure, absolutely. Well, it depends. Was I helpful? How was it? Okay, or?
Well, you guys can unmute yourselves now. I mean, go ahead. I mean,
I think I got one thumbs up, so that's all right.
Definitely helpful.
Yes, Jack, it was very good. Really enjoyed what you're saying, and it helps to balance our own thoughts. Certainly appreciate it.
My pleasure. Ken, is there any last other questions they want to shoot at really quick?
No, go ahead. I mean, I've been trying to follow the chat. Janelle, I think you had a question.
I had a question. If no one has
Hi.
one,
Hi,
ahead.
Jack. How are you? We've communicated a few times via LinkedIn. What happens when your resume is forwarded to a recruiter? They forward it to a company. The company passes you by, and then you see a job post a couple months later that you want to apply to. Sometimes a company may not even talk to you because you were presented by a recruiter. So do you ask the recruiter how long they keep your resume, or what do you do so you can go after that job post?
Yeah,
Do you know what I'm
that's an
saying?
interesting question, because a lot of times, lots of times what happens if you send in, and I think what you're saying, Janelle, is like you send in a resume and then nothing happens, but something else opens up. Oftentimes companies will say, oh, that's a different job, and they'll look at you separately from the prior submission for another job. So if what you're saying, I applied to job A, nothing happened, but I see job B is really super cool, I would go after job B. And if you want to make yourself feel comfortable, you can maybe say, hey, I have applied in the past, but this job looks fantastic. I'm not just sending resumes for the sake of, I wouldn't put in these words, but this kind of thought process. I'm not sending resumes for the sake of sending resumes, but this job fits because I've done X, Y, and Z, and the job is looking for X, Y, and Z, and this would be fantastic and please consider. So I would not hold myself back.
And what happens if you see job A posted again?
Again, the same job?
Let's
You know
say
what?
3
Here's
or
my
6
take.
months later.
All right, here's my take. In my opinion, because where we are now in the pandemic, and it looks like there's a resurgence, and who knows how long this is going to take, and is everyone going to say, hey, we have to have all these vaccines out before we do anything? I think, Janelle, you just got to go for it. You know what? It's almost like you have nothing to lose at this point. Hey, you tried for it. They didn't pick you up the first time. Try again. The worst they could do is say no. Like, okay, all right, thanks. So I would go more with an aggressive approach, meaning that And I go back to what I said, but politely but persistently. Hey, I applied for it, job A. It didn't work out. I'm not sure why. I didn't get feedback, but that's okay. I understand you're busy, but I saw it again, and I really think I could do this job. Could we talk about it? Would you be open to talking? And
Right.
at least you try, because then you can feel good about yourself, because you can feel, hey, you know what? I stood up for myself. I empowered myself. I tried again, and maybe they'll take it, maybe they won't, but at least you can look in the mirror and say, you know what? I didn't give up, and I kept pursuing and I kept moving forward. So
Thank
so
you.
I would go for it.
Right, thanks.
Oh, my pleasure.
What? A different type of question, I guess. When a lot of recruiters ask people for their last 5 of their social, their month and day, and other personal information,
Good question.
is that expected, common? I realize some of that is for the ATSs, but what is the appropriate amount of information to give when, even with references and things? I mean, when do you
I
actually
didn't know that
build
they
it?
ask for socials. That I would be concerned. Yeah, if someone is asking,
They ask for the last 4 or 5 of
Really?
the social, the month and day, and I'm thinking
really?
it's probably for an
Yeah.
ATS or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had that happen too. It's mostly with the technology companies like Google and Facebook. They typically ask for the last 4. So I'm with you, Ken.
I mean, one thing
I
And
give
that's at the
my
beginning
phone-
of the search. That's the beginning, or
to
Yes.
submit you, yes.
Yes.
wow.
Yeah, I've even
Go
had
figure.
them ask for the month and day of your birthday, but not the year.
Let me think.
They also ask for the last 4 of your social, and what I do is I give them the last
Yes.
4 of my phone number. Nobody's ever going to get my social out of it.
I love that.
That's
That's
a
brilliant.
great-
And they say, oh, I made a mistake. I didn't realize. Oh my God, that's so awesome.
Exactly what I'm gonna say if it comes to that.
Oh,
Well,
I thought you meant my phone number.
I have given the 4 digits and I gave it incorrectly, and they responded back saying that I gave them the wrong numbers. For some reason, they're able to check on the 4.
Wow.
Oh, interesting.
Wow.
I think it goes
Yeah.
to the type of vendors that are out there too. I mean, we all get, or a lot of people get these emails that are sent out as it's hi blank. I have position, fill in the blank, and it's just like spaghetti against the wall.
Yeah.
Could it be to help with sourcing, to find out who submitted, let's say 2 different recruiting agencies reached out to you for the same job rec, and to find out if on the client side, to find out who went in first. Nice catch, Jack.
I have another one. I don't know where she is. They do that. So what happens is, what I find out usually is the first come first serve. So let's say I send in a resume, and then all of a sudden I find out in the ATS system, Amy sent it in first. She gets credit for it. So there is that.
Right. Yeah, but I'm thinking maybe back to the last 4 numbers of your phone number, your social, but
Yeah.
whatever it is, maybe that is sort of linked to that.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying to rack my brain around that one.
But, I do wonder, I wonder what you guys think. I do wonder, oftentimes, are these companies doing it just to collect as much data? Because there's such a big business in selling data. They
Right.
try to get as much information from as many job seekers, and then they just end up sending it out. I have no proof of that at all. I'm just, being a cynic.
Jack, I had a question. Well, I'm a career coach. My name is Pat Roquet. Hi. Thank you for all the advice that you're
Hi.
giving. I have heard from 3 different people this week who said they had the greatest interviews ever, and they were told no, and then jobs are being reposted. There seems to be this hot new thing with reposting of jobs. Is anybody else experiencing that? And what do you think? Is there a trend that you're seeing behind that?
Would you repost the same job over again?
Yeah. I
just
told
giving stuff
I
away?
told all my clients to go ahead. If I were them, I would reach right back out and say, "Oh, Happy New Year. Nice to see you." blah, blah, go for it. Like, don't let that stop you until they tell you no again. If it's posted again, that means someone didn't take it, or maybe they thought they had an offer, or are they just trying to grow their candidate pool, like their list of potentials? I don't know. Just thought that was a lot for a couple of days.
Yes, yes. Can I tell you? Yes, yes, and yes. Yes, yes, and yes. Yes, because sometimes what happens is you have somebody and you think the person's going to get the job offer and everything's done, but at the last minute it doesn't work out. And they pull the job because they figured, oh, okay, we have this person. You know, Pat's got it. She's going to accept it. Everything's great. Let's take the job down. And it turns out Pat's not taking the job. Oh, let's put it up again.
Okay.
Also, you ever notice that happens with real estate? You ever notice that? A house is on the market for a certain amount of time, right? And then no one's biting. They take it off, and then you see the same house. You're like, wait a minute, that house looks familiar. Because, you know, I'm nosy, so I'm always looking in my neighborhood, like what houses are going up and what's going on. So I'm like, wait, that's the same house. So I think sometimes they don't want it on too long. This job on for 6 months. What's up? Why is it for 9 months? So they take it down and they put it back up again. So these are common little tricks. And also with Indeed and other places, sometimes they'll stay on forever and they're not even real. So you have that too that you have to deal with.
Yeah, well, we always try to go with real people, because if you think a resume is going to get you a job, you are sorely, I believe, mistaken 99 out of 100 times. So it's always about real people. But thank you for that. One more little question. What about, I've seen a lot of recruiters that are now recruiters / career coaches / HR, all of the above. How does that work? Do you have any insight? I don't know if they're moonlighting as career coaches or recruiters and see that they can double dip. I don't know. I'm curious.
I don't know, but it doesn't surprise me because there's so, if you go like on Indeed and I don't know if you have this for your business, Pat, and like you could see the resumes, there have been so many recruiters who have lost their jobs over the last 9 months. The internal HR people have lost their jobs. So it's not surprising where people are going to kind of just try to reinvent themselves and say, hey, you know what? I'm a recruiter, but I'm not getting any business. I'll be a career coach, or I'll be a resume writer, or I'll be whatever, or vice versa. I think a lot of people are going through that now. You know, like, what do I do? Am I going to be able to get a job what I did before? You know, maybe I have to just go to plan B. I have to reinvent myself, pivot, go back to school, learn something different. I think this is what happens across the board. So yeah.
Thank you for that.
Can I ask a question? Are there recruiters out there that focus primarily on jobs for people over 50?
I don't know offhand, but I'd imagine so.
You'd believe so?
I don't know offhand, but I'd imagine so. Or you don't just specifically say because of the age, but they may deal within your field.
Well, those I found that, but I am also a victim of having an amazing interview, and then my resume was passed on to the hiring manager, who misinterpreted my resume, gave the recruiter feedback, and the recruiter was even shocked because I was the purple squirrel. So I mean, they're not going to tell you obviously that it's age, but I did reach out to the person that I interviewed with, and not because I want to find the backstory, but she works for the third-party recruiter, and I kind of do want to know the backstory, but I have like a connection with her. So I felt like I could reach out afterwards. And I don't know, I mean, I'm 55. I mean, I don't hide my age, although I do hide it on my resume, but nobody's stupid. I mean, we're told what we're told to do, you know, remove your graduating year and all the rest of it. So the only question I have is, do you think there are recruiters out there that specifically can help people who are a victim of ageism? I mean, it's out there.
I'll look into it, but I will say this, my own opinion. I think ageism is rampant. I think it's for real. And what I notice is this. I'm curious, Nancy, if you see this as well, is that I don't know if it's so much the age per se, but usually what happens if someone is of a certain age, they have a certain amount of experience, and that maybe they have a certain title level and compensation. And that's where I find where the challenge comes in, because then they're thinking, hey, do I hire Jack Kelly, who's X years old, making a certain amount, or do I hire somebody who's like 27 and who will get, take a quarter of it
Yeah, but you know what? I think that age, I mean, I can't speak for everybody. I can only speak for myself. That I'm that I'm loyal. I mean, nobody really knows that about me, but I've been in a job for 18 years. I had my own business for 6. So it's like, I'm not going anywhere. I think that when it comes to salary, the salaries aren't bad. I mean, I don't want to be the person that says it's better than unemployment. But, I want to find the right opportunity. I want to find my last opportunity. I want to find a place where I'm going to fit in and I'm going to make a difference. And I say that, and I think people appreciate that, but I can't get further. So I just don't know what it is.
Nancy,
Yeah.
I'm not a recruiter, but I am a career coach, but I've worked in the agency world for a really long time, and I get opportunities. Whether I'm following someone and they pass it along, or they whisper it in my ear, or they send me to it, but hear about stuff all the time. And most of my clients I'm 56, so I'll just throw that out there and say most of our clients are more my age than my kids' age, for sure, by a mile. And so one of the things I'll encourage you to think about is yourself as a center of excellence instead of a candidate. You've got great experience. What do you bring to the table? How are you a solution? And what problem do you solve for them? And stop thinking of yourself as a candidate, one of many. In that, if you ever read Blue Ocean Strategy, it's a pretty cool book saying, like, don't go swim with the sharks and the chum in the bloody red water. Figure out a way to come across as different. So if you're right sizing your life, sometimes people want a big job and more, and sometimes people want a little, not a little job, but a different. They don't always want the big job, the power, and the stress. So maybe when you're right sizing your next chapter, you can think a little bit differently and take yourself out of that candidate and I'm old mindset and put yourself in center of excellence. Here's what I bring to the table. Here's the solution, and here's the value. So if you can build a business case with ROI, depending on what you do, you've got to have numbers in your, I'm sure you've got quantifiable accomplishments over time. Articulate those values and leverage people. Hope that helps.
It does. And I've been doing that. So,
All right, the call is officially over.
all right, bye.
No, I mean, if you want to stick around a couple minutes, fine, but if not,
Sure. If anyone has any questions.
thank you everyone for coming, but I just wanted to let you know, because I always like to be respectful of everyone's time, but we can hang out here for a little while if it's okay with Jack.
Sure, I'll stay.
Hey, Ken, I don't know where you post the chat, the links.
I put the chat in the meetup on the event, but you can email me and I can send you a direct link to it as well, because it's actually online.
Okay.
So, for sure.
Yeah, I'll send you an email. Thank you so very much.
Absolutely. Yeah, no problem. So we're all here hanging out.
Ken, I have a question for Jack.
Sure.
Or whoever wants to help answer it. What are your thoughts on applying to too many too many roles? Is this something out there that companies blacklist you for applying for more than 3 jobs? Because sometimes I go to one of my target companies and I see a few roles that I would be a good fit, but because I don't know the organizational structure of the company, without being an insider, obviously, I don't know if, at what level. So sometimes I'll apply for director level, manager level. So it's all kind of a crapshoot, basically. Sorry for the horrible language.
No. What I would suggest what happens is this. I've noticed that companies sometimes may feel if a person is sending a resume to like 24 jobs on their job, site, they can be like, okay, Sandra's not really serious. She's just shotgunning resumes everywhere. But if you selectively 1, 2, 3, but then I'm not in love with cover notes, but then maybe you do put a cover note so that it says, hey, I have previously applied to such and such job, but I saw this one, and this is kind of what Jeanette was talking about earlier, but this one is amazing and I'm perfect for it. I'm great. Can we talk about it? And so then at least it dispels the thought like, okay, Alex is just sending it just willy-nilly. You know, she really gave thought to it.
Right. Okay. That's great advice. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh, my pleasure.
And then as far as applying, if you if a recruiter reaches out to you with a role, and then you have the company, you go on to the company, and that role is listed on the company website, this was actually a question that Nancy asked. I'm not sure if it was answered.